in Estonia, being a 20-year-old and doing a startup and having a fairly successful startup is not a like you're not in the like kind of top echelon. It's like there's a lot of youth in Estonia that are like 18, even younger than me, that are like
Mm,
excellent at startups, you know? So that's the kind
mm.
of like status or the I guess yeah level there is in Estonia. But still, it's been a long journey. At least it feels like I feel 40 sometimes and not 20
In
based on the
dog
amount
years,
of
yeah.
in dog years, yeah. So based on the amount of work that has gone, but I started actually, well, I played basketball before I even got into business. I got into business actually in 2023, and I got into business by doing actually. So why I quit basketball is because I realized, okay, I'm not making the NBA in the next five
Yeah,
years, right?
yeah.
So I was okay. Well, if I'm not gonna make, and I played basketball because I loved it, but it was also because I saw LeBron James and these players that
Uh,
made a lot of money. So I was like,
mm,
okay, I also want to make that money, but then I just realized I'm not making it to that level, and I also made the math in my mind that okay, on average, European players kind of get, or like average players get nothing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then above average players get a couple thousand per month, and
Mm,
then the higher ones actually get like 10K and millions eventually.
yeah.
And so I did that math and I was like, okay, there must be a better way because I see all these, Lambos and stuff like that. Of course, I'm a young guy attracted to Lambos, right? So yeah. So I went into, I guess real estate was the first thing that came to my mind. It just like somehow came to my mind. And I started actually, yeah, so I started as a real estate agent. I guess it was my official thing. And I'd say it was the best decision of my life going there because first of
Mm.
all, I started my career started with cold calls. So that's like the kind of
You
sales,
learn how to sell. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was a great introduction to sales. Best introduction I could have get, honestly. And it was, I mean, I wasn't successful at the start at all. So that was another great reason why I appreciate that I started from real estate. Meaning the first 4 or 5 months I made nothing as a real estate agent. Zero, like not even a cent, you know? And then I made, and my first check wasn't thousand, wasn't 5,000, wasn't anything close to even 100. I mean, okay, it was close to 100, but it was 80 bucks or 80 euros, I
Mm,
guess.
mm.
And so, but then on the side, I also started a sports agency because then I kind of, as I did the real estate, my entrepreneurial kind of instincts grew. And I started realizing opportunities as you kind of, when you selling, I've also seen is a great part of realizing like opportunities on how you can convince the person or realizing cooperation opportunities, right?
Mhm.
It's not only about kind of convincing, but it's also about finding the opportunities and then I guess, yeah, going into the emotions and stuff. And so that allowed me to find, oh, I actually have a lot of these like students that I know that want to go to the
Mm.
US from Estonia, Europe. So it's like, okay, I found an opportunity there. I had all the contacts regarding schools and agents. So then I started doing that, and also the checks were bigger there, like per player. Funny enough, like I made 80 bucks, then I was like, okay, now I got to do something that makes me more money. Or I thought real estate wasn't going to make me that much money. So I started that on the side as well. And fast forward about, I guess, like 6 months or something like that, I closed like some apartment, no, actually more. So in
Mm.
October of 2023, I closed my first deal at the end of October. In real estate, that was
Mm.
the 80 euros.
Mm.
And then when was it? It was like, yeah, in January, I believe, or start of February, something like that of
Yeah.
2024, I closed my
Yeah.
second deal, which was much better. It was about a
Yeah.
thousand, like in commissions for
Yeah.
myself. And then fast
Let me
forward
ask you,
to
$80. Like, what are you possibly getting? What's an 80? What's being sold for $80? Like a hut? I mean,
it was a rent. I rented out something, and I rented out
okay.
one room. I rented out one room, and that
Uh,
was like, I guess, it was, yeah, like since I worked at a real estate agency, I paid half to the real estate agency, so I made
okay.
150, and then I got like 80 or
All
a
right.
bit over, So
Uh,
humble start, you could say. But yeah, and then I guess once kind of like May came around, May was
yeah.
actually my first. So the other months before, I made a thousand, couple thousand, something like that. But then May 2024 was my first month where I made 10,000 a month. So
Mhm.
that's the kind of thing that goes around. I'll make 10K a month, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
10,000.
Right. Yeah. So, and I made it with a combination of actual multiple businesses at that time. I guess, well, real estate agency. I actually sold the entire apartment building. And then sports agency. I closed a couple players I sent from Estonia and Finland to play in the United States to college in US, or to college and high school. And then I actually started SEO in January of 2024, but I was just kind of learning until May, didn't really, or until March, I didn't really close anything or didn't do much. I guess I did start, my sports agency was actually my introduction to SEO.
Oh,
So yeah, so in, what is it? Yeah, January of 2024, I started doing SEO for my sports agency. I found like, okay, how could I get clients from a sports agency, right? And that's actually where I got the clients that I closed in May. So
oh,
my friend, my co-founder of RankUp, we met in college, and he actually introduced SEO to me. So Julian Goldie was actually the first SEO I ever watched.
oh, yeah. I
You
was
know
on his
him?
podcast a couple
Oh,
years ago.
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. So that was the first guy I ever like watched an introduction to SEO, and he was all about kind of generating a lot of blogs with AI, and it sounded like easy money to me. So
Mm,
and my co-founder, he's really good at these automate, or he was quite good at the time already at these automations.
yeah.
So we built like
Yeah.
some quick blog generator, or whatever you want to even call it. I guess it just generated blogs, but the blogs were kind of like just AI slop. But funny
Yeah.
enough, it started getting me around 3 to 5, maybe even some weeks, 10 leads of players, you know? So people were reading the blogs, and I mean, it got me also a lot of, quite a like significant increase in traffic. So we did like a couple months of posting 50 blogs a month with this
Mm,
automation.
mm.
And then the site just took off. And yeah, that's where I got also the leads that I closed in May eventually. So yeah, that was the kind of introduction to SEO, and then actually it was a mess. 2024 start was a complete mess. So I quit the real estate in May. When I sold my apartment building, I was like, okay, this is a
Yeah.
good end. I got my sales. I really went to real estate as to get like sales experience, and so
Mm,
yeah, basically, I just quit that. Then I quit my sports agency in July of 2024 after I closed the players, because I realized the sales cycle was a little
mm,
too. I thought it was like too long for the amount of money I'm
mm,
getting. Of course, you could get more
mm.
players, and otherwise, it's like a good business. All you need is a phone, connections, and a charger, right? So that your phone
Yeah.
doesn't run out.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, I liked SEO more because of like, I just like, it was just, just like that first site took off
Yeah.
just with some random AI generated blogs, got me leads,
Yeah.
like what the
Huh.
hell, you know? So and then that's how I got into SEO, and then we started an SEO agency in March of 2024. We closed 4 clients very fast here in Estonia. Of course, friends, family, and fools, right? That's how it
Um,
goes. And it was just all types of businesses, real estate, some developer, some big packaging company in Estonia. It was different kinds of, and then some small
yeah.
skincare business, very varied, right? But local businesses in Estonia, actually. So kind of, you do local as well, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
thing. So that's how it was for us. And then but for them, it was more kind of web development, actually. And then
Uh-huh.
also some SEO, like basic kind of, making sure their meta descriptions, and then schema, and then
Yeah.
creating also some blogs as well, and some
Yeah.
backlinks and directories, but not a lot. Mostly we got paid for the actual web development that we did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had these clients, but then we just realized we were like completely bogged down by the work. So what we did is, okay, we did the web
Oh.
projects for these clients. We did some SEO, but then we kind of
Yeah.
stopped working with them, and we realized, okay, now if we want to actually build this to an agency, we need to have a proper, I guess, positioning, and that's where I got into like value props and positioning. Before I was just
Yeah.
a pure hustler, you know.
Yeah.
I
Like
was I
anybody.
wasn't exactly, yeah, I wasn't building a really business. I was just it wasn't even that well paying of a job, because it was 3 of us and we had to manage all the projects anyways. It was a mess. But yeah, in July of 2024, we kind of actually like put a pause, basically let kind of fired the clients, but in a way we also completed the project. So we didn't like kind of
Okay.
take them on,
Right.
right?
Right.
And we had enough money to kind of invest in like, ads and try stuff like that as well. So we built like a good base for capital. But yeah, then took the direction of SaaS, because in Estonia,
Mm.
tech is kind of, like I mentioned before, tech is very popular in Estonia, like extremely popular popular, and everybody nowadays wants to do a startup here. So I'd say it's the place to do it in Europe as well. But yeah, basically, and then we actually watched Alex Ramosi videos a lot. I also watched a lot of Jeremy Lee Minor for like sales and I guess funnels. What else did I watch? Russell Brunson for sure. So I was just consuming YouTube, and then we just like put together value props, unique value props, whatever we could, kind of the fundamental things, positioning. We rebuilt the website, and then in a week, once we like finished it, we got our first SaaS customer actually. And I got it when I was in Montenegro clubbing around. I'm not a big guy who goes to clubs at all. This was basically my first time going to a club. We did like 8 clubs in 6 days or something. So it was an interesting introduction to the clubbing world. But no, I haven't gone since then. It was just, I have some friends over in the Balkans, and Balkans are kind of a fun place in the summer, you could say. But yeah, I basically was chatting with the guy in the club, and then we closed the deal, and then we're like, okay. So as soon as I came back to Estonia, we started with the client, and then that was actually our first real like SEO campaign that we did for a client.
What did you do?
We did specifically content still. So we started with content because that's what we grew the sports agency site with. That's what we also helped grow a Finnish skincare site with. So we had some experience in terms of SEO campaigns already. And yeah, we started off with content, and we started off actually, now we try to build a business, right? So we were like, okay, we need writers, right? Because content for the most part is writing. The images could be handled by one of my co-founders of the agency, who is a developer and a very good designer. And because we tried giving the images to the freelancers, but it was also a complete hiring problem. We just went to Upwork. We tried to negotiate the cheapest price we can without thinking about, people have to get paid and pay their bills. So, and I was super happy whenever I got the cheapest price. I was like, hey guys, this guy's willing to do it for, I don't know what the rates were, but some ridiculously low rates. I guess our targeting was good. We did South Africa and Eastern Europe, like it's cheaper rates overall compared to US. But we were still kind of negotiating basically their people's salaries and like money away, right? Without thinking they need to pay their bills and quality and also people don't like just do the work. They, when you pay them less, they're gonna do it a bit shittier, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's the problem with freelancers.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that was kind of, and then we basically hired those, and then we had like about 4 or 5 writers at once, but then we realized we need to do so much more fixing, and it was just better that we cut them out. Actually, we just like, okay, it is what it is. The cooperation didn't work, and we also realized that we didn't have the capital yet with one customer to get that many writers, and also we realized like our writing didn't really bring in that many leads at the start, and the content didn't even rank as well, because this was US. This is a different game than Finland and Estonia in terms of SEO. Estonia, there's my friend has a great example where he basically, this is like very recent as well. He basically created a page for SEO. It's in Estonian, of course, but it's SEO lecturing or SEO teaching or something like that, a popular keyword. And he ranked with a page that has like the first sentence that defines what is SEO, and all of the rest of the content is generated with a Bacon Ipsum generator or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so little competition in Estonia to be the top SEO, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a great example of how little competition there is compared to like US. So we were like, okay, we're gonna absolutely crush it. But then the US kind of market entry was okay. Now this is the first time we're facing competition. We actually need to really like dial in on what we're doing. We can't just like AI generate these. And this is like 2024, I guess, like summer, at the end of summer, August, September, something like that is when we realized this. And that's actually the start of RankUp in a way.
So you had to make the pivot from an agency to a SaaS, which
Yes.
often you build a SaaS because you've built things for the client that you realize are repeatable, that you can charge on an ongoing basis and even automate.
Right. Yes.
So you had these copywriters, you know how to sell. So you figured out a way to turn that into an ongoing process and build. It looks like you have like these 3 agents that you've given them names as part of an SEO team, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, basically what happened then is we actually continued the agency, but what we did is we continued building RankUp, or well, at the time it was called SaaS Writer, the tool
Mm,
itself. But we didn't like sell it to anybody yet. We just called it internally and planned to launch it as
mm,
SaaS Writer, but turned out to be different.
mm,
But yeah, we kind of thought, okay, if we don't have yet enough money to really hire good people, then we were like, okay, I have two developers in my team, and I mean, they also proposed it to me. They were like, okay, let's solve it with tech. And well, Martin, my co-founder of RankUp as well, he's very good with automations. And
mm,
Alonso, my other co-founder of SERP Engineers, was the agency name, by the way. He's very good at like just like pure development, right? Like design, backend, front end, all of that. So
mm,
kind
mm.
of combined these two skills. They started like working on automations, and
Yeah.
and I guess the client was also like fine with us doing that. Initially, the client was kind of like, you know, I don't know, automated writing, but then that's what really pushed us to make it as quality as possible. And a lot of the
Yeah.
times, little parts of the thing that actually was generated by the SaaS writer tool. And a lot of it was just me or my co-founder Martin actually like
Huh.
writing the content ourselves
Huh.
and doing it manually. Yeah. And but that kind of allowed us, because a lot of prompting, what I realized or what we've learned is that a lot of prompting is just kind of prompting out the, I guess, edge cases, or the, not even the edge cases, but really just prompting out all the cases that you have in case of writing content. So for example, how to write like the first paragraph of the content, right? Like very specific, like parts of the content. That's where AI really does it well, if you give it very specific instructions. But like, yeah, giving it too much, like giving it just like, oh, just write the blog, right? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Well, AI
Yeah.
can't, and still I believe can't do it well. So yeah, that's, and then yeah, and we also got into link building with that client. So with that
Okay.
client, I have never done, I did some directories before, but in terms
You're
of link
buying
building,
links. You're doing some black
yes.
hat, right? Okay.
Yeah, I guess you could say so. Yeah, that was our first, or my first time. I was pretty much who dealt with the link building. Like I created
Yeah.
I had a freelancer do this, and this was actually a very good use of a freelancer. They created like a directory of different links for, like, I guess different like sites or
Mm,
publications or like news sites,
mm,
where we could actually post articles on, and where we could do outreach to. So that was, I guess, my one of my first success,
mm,
or yeah, successes of hiring, like, getting a freelancer to do a very specific job. So that
mm.
was good. And then I basically started to do outreach, got some free links, actually, some free like posts on some quite, so this was in the compliance niche, this customer.
Huh.
And some GRC viewpoint, I think it's a solid site. It got us a free publication there. So that was, I guess, my introduction to link building outreach. And but yeah, we
Mm,
did very few link building. It was purely still content. But by
mm.
like after 3 months, or like the fourth month, the project really like started to take off in terms of traffic and also like leads, right? And this wasn't like this customer wasn't a, $10 month SaaS, or even 100 or a 200. I think their minimum is like 1,000, or maybe even 10,000 minimum. So it's I guess an enterprise, or a high ticket SaaS. Not enterprise quite maybe, but it's a high ticket SaaS in the compliance niche. So helping other companies get SOC 2 compliant. And yeah, so that was pretty much who we were dealing with. And yeah, he got leads and he was very happy. But then came January 3rd of 2025, and we thought, okay, the tool is now really good. And I also just went to Chiang Mai
Ah.
for the first time. So
Ah.
I didn't go in Chiang Mai in 2025, but I did go in
Uh-huh.
2024 as a participant, and I talked
Uh-huh.
with a lot of SEOs there.
Huh.
And they told me, like, I told them about automations, I told them about what we
Mm,
were building. And they were like, oh, this sounds cool. Like, could I try? And it was a lot about like, oh, let's set up a call, let's try.
mm,
And
mm,
I was like, okay, sure.
mm.
That was like the easiest kind of, I guess, booking a meeting for my life ever. Otherwise you have to follow up with the person a bunch of times, or whatever. In this case, it was just like, I just said two words and they were like, okay, let's schedule a call. I want to see that. I want to try, right? And then we were like, okay, maybe we are born to do SaaS since we're Estonians. And then
Yeah.
on January the 3rd, we kind of laid off that. And the problem with that client also was that we were also we bogged ourselves down a lot with okay the client deliverables and then also building a SaaS at the same time. So we kind of had to decide which one are we going to go with. Like, do we want to build an agency or do we want to really go with the SaaS? And then we decided, okay, let's do the SaaS. It got the great results for this client, and all these SEOs are like basically just like, hey, let's hop on a call, let's talk, etc. So yeah, we just that was our only source of income as well, that client actually at the time. But then we just like, okay, we have enough cash flow. I think we can make it with RankUp. We can get customers fast enough. And then we just basically, I guess in his case, fired it because SEO never really stops, right? So we stopped working with him, and then we started RankUp. Before it was called Advanti, or SaaS Writer, Advanti, Outrank, and then RankUp eventually. So all of those name changes were in the same month. But yeah, but RankUp actually, it was interesting enough that the SaaS Writer, we thought like, okay, it still needs, like, it has a lot of bugs. It works well, but in the case of outputs, but it has a lot of these edge case bugs. So we're like, okay, let's not launch this yet. But SEOs were also very interested in because we also had other automations at the agency. I guess we had like a very automized agency actually. All the strategy reports, or performance reports, keyword research, etc. was all automated. So we're like, okay, let's sell this like strategy report or like something like this to start, because that was the most ready thing. And yeah, we started selling that initially. Well, actually, we didn't actually start selling it the first month, because our like the time it took to create a report that we could actually present took a week, like 1 week actually, because there were so many bugs. There were like that my co-founder had to deal with. He was also just actually learning code at the time. He started learning code in what was it, like August of 2024. And now I mean, he's a full-time developer, front and back end, everything. So he's made a lot of progress and built an entire app and builds AI agents and all of this now. So I'm very proud of him for that. But yeah, the first month of 2025 was just like building, and we barely got anything delivered to a customer, like actually something fully, or sorry, to an SEO, like actually a full report that we could show and then they could use and do something with. So and this was also a time where I actually took the time to not actually go and sell, but really learn customer discovery. Because I learned this is a very important part of building a startup and actually building a company. And what made me realize this was I have a mentor here in Estonia. He, a lifelong friend, and he teaches the startup schools here in Estonia. And he was like, okay, so what problem are you solving? And then I kind of thought about it, and I really couldn't answer him in a clear way. I couldn't articulate like what is the problem I'm solving. I thought like I only thought really about, there's so many like benefits that you get with the strategy report and stuff, or at least I thought so. But then I couldn't really describe like, what is the concrete problem that I'm solving for these SEOs that we were building this automation for. And then that's what made me actually, he sent me some resources of Steve Blank. Do you know Steve Blank?
I know who he is, but we're not friends.
Okay, right, yeah. But yeah, he's kind of, I guess he's called the godfather of customer discovery or something like that. But he talks a lot about it, and also a lot about startups in general. And so I watched basically all of his videos on customer discovery, how to do it, what is the concept, and then I started the customer discovery. So actually learning about who is our customer for this strategy report that we had at the time. Like, by the way, we don't like, that's, RankUp is completely different nowadays. And that was, I guess, our start to RankUp. But my first customer discovery showcase was a picture of the SaaS. So that was how times have changed, right? Nowadays with Cloud Code, anybody can make a working or somewhat working prototype. At the time in 2025, and this is like last year, right? This is not 5 years ago, not two. This is 1 year ago, 1 year and a half, I guess. And I had to go with a picture because we had nothing functioning, but it was a great. I'm like very thankful that I did that, and my mentor really pushed me to do that. I guess a good learning in terms of why mentors are important I mean, they're gonna kind of guide you in the direct way, right? They're not always gonna give you the answers, but they're like guiding you to make sure that you don't go completely off the rails. So if he wouldn't have told me that, I probably would have gone to do customer discovery like in May of 2025. And then got my first feedback that, hey, what we have is shit, you know, because that's what I got in January when I went to the first person who I was talking with. Like a lot of feedback, but ultimately they were like, okay, you know what, yeah, this is cool, but I don't want to really automate my strategy reports. So then I was like, okay, we need to kind of go back to the drawing board of what we're actually building. And the first 5 months of 2025 was just me going to SEOs and doing calls who I met from Chiang Mai, right? Which was like why Chiang Mai was actually a great conference in the sense I met a lot of people and I made a lot of good connections. And yeah, that feedback was crucial on us like deciding where are we actually going to go with the product or with RankUp overall. Yeah, so and for basically that's what was going on. And then in May of 2025 we reached a point where we had barely any money in the account, in RankUp account, because we didn't actually manage to sell anything yet, because I was just doing customer discovery. We were trying to figure out like, okay,
you're building.
what is the
yeah
yeah, we were building.
That was only 1 year ago. You had no money a year ago. Wow.
Like a no cash flow. Yeah, I guess you could say like the business, you know, the business account that we had shared together. Like, of course, I had some side hustles and stuff that I was doing to kind of keep myself afloat, but the like RankUp account itself was going fast, especially in May. You know, in May we had our last like 1,000 left or something like that, and then by the end of May I had to inject money into the account to keep it afloat actually. But now in May, what was super crucial was we kind of like did our official launch because we had something like working now, and we have gotten a lot of feedback, and we thought we knew the problem we are solving, or well, we kind of had it, but it was still a bit blurry and it wasn't fully validated yet, but you know, better to launch sooner than later.
Yeah.
And then SEO Vibes conference came around. Have you heard of SEO Vibes? I think it's this week.
No.
Okay. Well, it's a conference in Poland, and we went there with Martin. We were like, okay, so we, you know, this is it. This is basically kind of, we didn't take it as the last shot because we were either gonna get investment or whatever to make it work. But I mean, who knows? Maybe we wouldn't have got an investment, right? It's not as like certain. But we went there. There's a lot of SEOs. There is an SEO conference, a great SEO conference. I actually like it a lot. It was my first time there last year, and we talked a lot of SEOs. We got like a lot of feedback, book calls, and etc. But we didn't actually really make like concrete money from the conference based on like what we showed. They like one thing was also selling it. We hadn't really figured out how to sell RankUp at the time. The problem was also a bit like blurry. But what we did do is we closed a crucial deal, which was an SEO automation deal. So we started building actually a link building automation for a link building agency. And that gave us, that kind of saved RankUp in a way. That gave us the capital that we needed to continue this without me going bankrupt myself, right? Because yeah, you know, you gotta fund the business somehow. Costs, you know, we still had costs of developing the thing, and of course some like outreach costs and etc. as well ramped up. But we closed those, and then we kind of continued going at it. And for the whole summer, I was doing a mix of like, I guess, yeah, still customer discovery, but now I was going more into, we felt like we found, you know, what the problem we were looking for, a concrete problem that people are like dying to, you know, solve and pay for, right? And we closed our first customer for RankUp in June, kind of, I think it was second part of June of 2025. And it wasn't nothing big. It was, I think, like a $20 subscription on it. It was a founder of I think he was kind of also freelancing, but he was a founder of his lead gen agency. And and he used RankUp. He liked it a lot. We closed the next customer for RankUp at the start of July, something like that. It was actually from a video. It was an Estonian SEO who really liked it, and he kind of used it for his projects. So that was awesome. It was our first actual SEO customer for RankUp, the target market, right? We were targeting. And he liked it a lot, so we're like, okay, we gotta keep going at it, right? So I started doing more outreach. I also started doing YouTube. I did LinkedIn. I did Facebook. I did a lot of different things to market. but somehow I wasn't still getting the traction that I had hoped for. And so in, August goes by, right? We have some users. I think we had at the time, I don't know. I mean, paying customers, I believe we had like around 5 or 6 perhaps, like SEOs, or like it was a mix of founders and SEOs using it.
Yeah.
But it was actually more founders, which was the very interesting part of RankUp. So we were targeting SEOs with our software, but we got more founders as customers. So that really did a
Well,
light bulb
what did
in
the
my.
founders, what did the founders want? What did they see?
They saw like that something that can automate their kind of SEO, and they didn't really know how to do SEO, and they also can't pay. They were like startups, actually, founders of startups, and they couldn't pay. Like they knew what it took to pay for a good agency, or at least they had this kind of frame of about 5 to 10K a month. And yeah, and they said they can't pay for it, or they don't want to pay for it, right? It's ultimately about like kind of how you perceive the value. And they didn't really want to pay for that, so they were like, "Oh, I mean, RankUp is like a couple $100 a month, or at the time I think it was about 100 a month." And they were like, "Okay, why just not use RankUp to do our SEO?" And so that's kind of their reasoning, right? But that kind of and the fact that most of the users were founders really brought something important like to light for me. And also another thing was like AirOps, and what is that? Like some of these like automate workflow tools, right? I think you've heard of AirOps.
Like
right?
Airtable or whatever? Okay.
AirOps is basically I think it basically can build workflows like it. It's a bit like, I guess maybe Airtable also has some no code automations. But Make, do you know Make.com?
Make, N8N, all that.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I guess better Zapier's.
Yeah. Right. I guess Ops is an alternative to those tools, right? So, and we were like, okay, actually, so AirOps is targeting SEOs, and SEOs are really loving those tools. And we were like, okay, so why is that? I started thinking about it. My co-founder were still going at it, building the tool, developing like crazy, and also getting the development skills that are really crucial for us today. But we were like, and I realized like, okay, they work really well because SEOs are kind of digitally, or we could say technically like more savvy people, on average more savvy, right? With all these workflows and agents, AI, etc. Because all of our work is digital. And then I realized, okay, so AirOps and these tools work for them because SEOs know what they want. They typically want custom like automations if they want to automate something, and they have every SEO has their way of kind of approaching SEO, right? There are some that really follow like some frameworks, but if you're really passionate about SEO and if you really like want to learn more, and you're eventually going to develop your own way of doing it. And so that was one thing. Another thing was like kind of the success of AirOps, and the third thing was the fact that founders were most of our users. And then I was like, okay, we need to do a pivot to focusing not on SEOs with our product, but focusing to the founders that don't have SEO figured out for themselves, and they need help with it. But they either have been burned by an SEO agency before, or they can't pay for an agency, or they don't perceive the value of the SEO agency being as big, or whatever the case may be. So, and essentially like kind of a cheaper option to an agency, right? So a team of AI agents, that's actually where it like came from. So we made the pivot literally on September the 1st. We made the pivot to focusing on that. And on August 31st, I was talking with my co-founder. At first he was like, I mean, we built the product, do we really have to like rebuild it again? It was a big decision, but in hindsight, it was a big decision, but it was very crucial for our success. And so, basically we rebuilt the product. Like this was our third or fourth time rebuilding the product, because before we had a strategy report thingy, you could say. In May, we had like a kind of it did like content briefs and keyword research. So it was like, it had multiple different things in it. So anyways, it evolved quite multiple times. So for SEOs, we also rebuilt the product a few times. But basically we rebuilt it again for the fourth or fifth time. I don't remember at this point what it is. And we made our about fourth or fifth pivot as well in terms of business, because with SEOs, initially we were targeting all SEOs. Then we realized, okay, because we also had link building features. And then we're like, okay, we need to kind of narrow it down. So we narrowed it down to content, right? And then we narrowed it down to SaaS. So I guess SEO agencies that offer content services to SaaS companies. That's eventually what the niche was for SEOs, or who we were targeting. But yeah, we made the pivot to founders and like non, I guess, SEO people. And initially, I mean, it took a long time to build the product again, because now this is, we wanted to build something much more complex, which was a team of AI agents that actually work together and they really have the SEO intelligence in them as well. And so my co-founder Martin went at it, and I started to do custom discovery again, right, from scratch with founders from my network. Fortunately, Estonian ecosystem is so good that I knew a lot of founders already. So yeah, I think this time custom discovery didn't take me 4 months. It took me a week to do it, because I knew the setup of the call. I knew the questions that I needed to ask. I knew the information that I was looking for, but I almost made the same mistake that I did the previous customer discovery calls. And it was that I didn't actually ask them to pay at the end of the custom discovery. I took the custom discovery call as a research call, not as a actual sales call, because my goal is to eventually sell these people something, not just do a call to, you know, get their opinion, right? And so I almost made that mistake, or I didn't do it on my first call, but then I was like, okay, George, do you really want to go through this shit again? Do you really want to do another round of customer discovery and all this, like rebuilding the product? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to actually ask them to pay at the end of my call, because that's really, and I also had some calls lined up with SEOs, and SEOs told me, like, as soon as I asked them to pay, they told me, like, this is like still like middle of September or something like that. They told me, nah, you know, it's you know, what are the typical objections? Like, I don't have the time right now. I gotta go into another meeting, or or this is, you know, maybe this is not for me, or it's cool, but it's, you know, yeah. And then they started to tell me their like objections, right, or their kind of why they wouldn't buy. And then they told me, hey, I need something custom. That was ultimately the kind of consensus of what they told me. And then I was like, okay, so I mean, completely clicked for me there. But almost all of them said that, like, yeah, but you know, you can't do this, or there's some data security that, or, you know, it was all these kind of custom automation related problems, which AirOps and these pretty much solve, right? Because they provide you the way of doing custom automations. And yeah, so, but then founders was a different story. Actually, founders were like, yeah, sure, you know, let's do it, right? So of course, I didn't close everybody, but I closed a good, like, I think about 60% of the founders I talked to, I closed.
That's really high. It was super high. Anyone over 20% is a very high close rate. Or something like this.
I guess they were in some way warmer as well, right? Since I talked with
in your network.
Like, yeah, right. So, but you know, not everybody was like a great friend of mine, but yeah, there were still people I knew and I've met before somewhere. And yeah, so we closed them and they started using it. And then, I mean, from their like usage, like, and we got like great feedback from them. Initially, actually, it was, and RankUp at the time was also like a few $100 or something like that, a subscription. So they're like, yeah, actually like pay the monthly subscription. Now RankUp is upwards of like $280. Like 280 is like absolute minimum.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, by the time we meet, it'll be $500.
Yeah,
I have to run to another call in 2 minutes, but I want to continue our conversation. I think it's so fascinating, George, how you're selling in the most difficult market, like getting SEO people to buy SEO software and customization. That shows that you have some kind of talent, which is shown through, and how you started the real estate and the sports agency, and how you persist through with you and your two founders, even when you didn't have $1, you know, a year ago. The way you look at dates, like January 3rd, 2025, or September 1st, it tells me you're very procedural and focused on milestones. I think there's so many things that you have to unlock. I'd love to cover more of that later, and more about like how you've leveraged your network in Estonia to how that sort of caused you to have founders as the archetype. Like, there's so many more things to unpack. I feel like we haven't really gotten a chance. Like, you've sort of laid out like the basics, but now you know, maybe part 2, we can actually go into the real meat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's set a time, maybe the next couple of weeks or so. And I'd like to create value for you. You know, you have a knowledge panel. You haven't claimed it. Did you know that?
I saw the knowledge panel, yes, but like it when I constantly kind of at the evening before I go to sleep, I do check my Georg Richard Aare what comes up, and I kind of lost it for some time, I believe. But I don't know, maybe
You
it's
haven't claimed it, and the confidence score on it is 1, and I can tell you why the confidence score is so low.
oh, okay.
I'll fix it for you.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm a search engine engineer, so I'm a little different than the other people. I actually did work at the search engines.
I got you. I got you. I
Yeah.
read that. I read that before coming to the call as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, do you
Awesome.
want to schedule the next one now? Do you
Yeah,
have
let's. I'll send you an email or whatever, maybe like a week from now, if it's good for
Okay.
you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
that
awesome,
works well.
George.
All right. Awesome. Well, it
I'm
was nice to meet
excited.
you.
Yeah, we'll talk
It was
soon.
nice to meet you. All right. Talk soon. See you. Bye.